Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Full Court podcast. My name is Mpho and I've got Tim DeLace here with me, who spent 4 days, it seems, sitting underneath the greatest place on earth. Okay, not the greatest place on earth, because the greatest place on earth is the Wanderers, but he was sitting under the oaks at Newlands. There's no in Cape Town. There's no better place to be. I know they have a mountain. I know they have the beach, but they also have the Oaks, and it's one of the most iconic places in international cricket. If you ever get to go watch a test match at Newlands, wherever you are around the world, please find a way to sit on the grass embankment under the Oaks, right near the change rooms. You can see the players coming in and out. That's where I watched Vernon on debut rip Australia apart for like 4 days. Tim, how was it? How are you doing? How was watching your team actually capitulate the Rocks? Ooh.
All good, mate. All good for the win as well. Yeah, look, I did love going to Newlands. I loved it. It was really good, and I'm sure we'll touch on to it. Some really good performances from a young side that are just sort of making their name really knocking down the doors. So it was all in all a successful 3 days actually, not quite 4 but 3 days.
And one of our friends here on One World Sports Radio, one of our colleagues, James King, he was doing the commentary on that one. That was the only one that I commentary, and I love James' commentary, so I had no problem. I just was watching the game that was in botch most of the time. Yeah, remember our podcast is on YouTube. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got rugby commentary. We've got the final game of the end of year tour coming up this weekend. Please do support the guys. They really do a great job. They got 5,000 views on the weekend. We do a cricketing podcast. We also do follow South Africa around the world. So please do help us out if you want to advertise on this podcast. If you want to advertise on the Full Quote or any other podcast, please do email me at mpho at 1wsr.com. Outside of that, we also have a Patreon account if you'd like to support us. We really do like what we do, and it would really help if we got a little bit of extra motivation and encouragement once in a while, but that's okay. What we normally do, this is South African Domestic Cricket Podcast, the only one that actually talks about domestic cricket and the results and everything else that happens. We are talking 4 day series. This is the second last four. Tim, I found out that today that actually after next week's games, we have until February before we actually get 4 day cricket, which is hurtful. It's very hurtful because at least let's have some 4 day cricket while the Proteas are in Australia. It's not going to stop anybody. But yeah, but I know everyone's preparing for SA20. I'm sure they have to hand over the grounds a month before. So I get that you're going to have to start putting things in. And we record on the day that it's 50 days until SA20 starts. We had the launch last week. Really lovely launch. The players with these cool hoodies. I'd like a hoodie, Graham, if you're listening. Larate, if you are also listening, those hoodies are a tick in the right direction. They really looks really awesome, and it'll be a nice way to support, but also it'll be interesting to see how the kits look. I hope. Look, I'm not a fan, Tim, and let's start with this. I'm not a fan of all the IPL kits with multiple sponsors, even though it pays. I like a clean kit with apparel sponsor, one sponsor, and the team badge. That kind of works with a nice little design because multiple sponsors that cloud
Look,
the design and makes it look bad. But so I'm hoping for something, but I don't think I'll get it.
yeah, look, the ideal is a sponsor at the back and a sponsor on your on the left shoulder. That works perfectly. It's
And
it's
one in the
got two,
front.
and one in the front. That works perfectly. You got those are your main sponsors, and then your other guys are elsewhere in the stadium. That sort of thing. I agree. Something we hope to see in the 4 day series because all we saw in this round were team names, which I like. I'm a fan of the team name thing, but it just spoke to the whole setup that the money just isn't there. It would have been great to have had a sponsor's name above the name of the individual or on the left shoulder. It just would have been, it would have added something.
Yeah, look, we've had many conversations about making domestic cricket a viable entity on its own. The other thing I realized was domestic CSA is a Twitter account that's I'm following, and they're not following me, but that's fine. CSA follows me, that's okay.
They're not following me either. I put it out there, they're not following me either.
But there's a Twitter account. I was like, okay. It's a small step in the right direction, a small one. Now, maybe next step is if you can have all these games on YouTube we have them on YouTube, but on Twitter as well. So if I go to Twitter and I can watch like 5 minutes of a game instead of me going on YouTube and because YouTube's not that helpful, but if you can put it on Twitter or even Facebook, that'd be very helpful.
I'll tell you what. In their defense, they do it on the CSA app. A lot of people don't want the CSA app, but if you download the CSA app, you do get segments of the game at different times. The individual teams, they link it up to the pitch vision guys, and you can watch your lunch break. You can watch 5 minutes of the game. So they do give you a taster every session. They seem to give you a taster of the action, so to speak. So if you download the app, it's there.
Supporting CSA. I love the app too. It's just like with us, right? Our podcast is on multiple platforms. You'll find us on Twitter, find us on YouTube, you'll find us on Facebook. If we could add on more, you'd find us on Instagram, but Tim does a great job of that most of the times. Some of the times we need to be more consistent on that. That's our fault. We get it. But that's essentially what I want. You want to bombard people with as much cricket as possible because you're opening yourself up to a lot more advertisers because you can find advertisers on social media platforms, guys who want to associate themselves with cricket because there's a lot of cricket interest. It's just people are struggling to grab a hold of it outside of the traditional means. But if you can go the social media angle and do that, because so for instance, right, Supersport does a really great job on PSL, on South African football, from a Twitter perspective, like put up videos, they do all of that. We want that, but I'm saying go a step further. Obviously, we're on YouTube, but go a step further because we don't have the stuff on Supersport. Just give us a full day. It's going to take the most amount of bandwidth, but you can afford it. And it's not as expensive as having it on. And like if it would, because I know with some of the soccer games that I did on the SABC, we were live on Facebook too. So you could watch me on Facebook, and it was on Facebook Live. And you're like,
yeah.
That's mind blowing. To me, that's like next level, and you can swap between, but there's so many ideas we have, but let's talk 4-day results. I'm going to put it up, Tim, and we're going to talk about that because that's what we came here to do. The people are not interested in our thoughts and ideas of how to fix CSA. Trust me, I wrote a whole thing about this when I tried. I did apply to be a member of the board and it didn't work out, but I know why it didn't work out because if it worked out, I wouldn't be doing this podcast. Okay, this weekend, no rain this weekend, except for Division 2. Sorry, the guys in Division 2 in KZN. It rained there. Didn't rain here or anywhere else. Let's talk about the biggest victory I've ever seen in South African cricket. Well, I have ever seen in domestic cricket and the most incredible innings, Tim. And I'm going to read out the list of stats that Heinrich Klaasen broke when the Titans beat the Knights by 142 runs in Centurion. Klaasen scored 292 runs. It's the highest individual score ever by a Titans player. It's the biggest total by the Titans in the 4-day series, 648. Klaasen got to 5,000 first-class runs, and it's the highest 9th wicket partnership for the Titans with Klaasen and Junior Dala scoring 219. I think Junior Dala scored 50 in that game, right?
56, yeah. 56.
56 in that partnership, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, it was 292 of 240 balls. That was another story. But there's the one side of this, and I think let's talk to Heinrich Klaasen. Get selected by the Proteas. This man has been putting down runs consistently for a very long time. And he may have felt, Tim, that he was overlooked, maybe unfairly so from an age perspective, in the wicketkeeper conversation to a Kyle Verreynne, even though Kyle was averaging 50. But this one kind of says, actually, and we're going to talk about Kyle, but this one says Heinrich Klaasen is a statement to the selectors that, no, even as a batter, I could also come into the side. like this was unbelievable innings from him. And it was kind of a you guys forgot about me, maybe unfairly treated me in the when Quinton leaves, what happens conversation. What a way to answer the critics.
Absolutely. Look, he was picked to go to Australia, which I'm sure we will go into later in the podcast. This is a statement. This is a statement innings. This is saying, you know what? Thank you for picking me, and this is me showing trust in you, in that I am as good as I've ever been. I'm playing as well as I ever have been. I have the. You all know how good I am against the white ball, but you know what? I can actually quite handy against the red ball as well. I can actually fight against the big boys, if you like, the harder format where you need longer periods of time to build an innings, get yourself in, see the good deliveries out. This ticked all those boxes. The only box it didn't tick was the elusive 300 for him. But everything else, you have to say he's answered the critics. He said, you know what? This is why I'm was in and around the Protea selection, and yeah, ticked all the boxes.
Win them all, Tim.
Hey,
you can't win them all.
No, you can't. You can't. But he did exceptionally well. Exceptional innings. In any context, that is an exceptional innings. In the context of where the Proteas are, it's even more impressive.
And as a fan, I don't have an issue saying, wait, if they pick him in that first test, even as a replacement to Kyle, when we talk about him later, I'd be like, oh, no, that's fine. Even if they picked him as a middle order batter, I'd be like, well, oh, you saw that 292. But there's two more storylines about that Titans win that I want to talk about. One of them is Dean Alger scoring that 137. He asked in the press conference last week for his Protea batters to put runs down. Clarkson did, Carl Verena did to a certain extent, Ryan Rickleton did, even though we'll talk about him later as well. But he, most importantly, leading from the front, putting down that 137, another massive statement of intent.
He has led through the way he's played as a captain of the Proteas and in his run scoring. He said, you know what? We're under pressure. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to show you that I've still got it. I might be coming to the end of my career, but I've still got it. I've still got it in me. Look, he's not a spring chicken anymore. He's not a spring chicken. I don't think he's going to be around for that much longer. Maybe we can get into the later stage, but I don't think...
2025 Test Championship years?
That's possible.
No one's putting their hand up to pick him out. So here's the thing, and I think this was Jacques Callis' problem, right? Nobody put their hand up to say, Jacques, get out the side. Or to a certain extent, Graham, get out the side, right? Yes, Dean was there. Yes, Alvaro was there, and they were always the other person. But nobody was there to forcibly push these people out. So too with Faf. So too with Amla. And it makes retiring very tough at a position like that for those guys because there's no one else. And that's why, I think even with Faf, I've gotten to that part in the book. I'm not yet complete with it. It was I know you guys still need me, but the culture has changed so much that I have to go. It wasn't a situation of actually there's someone else inside here who can do the same job I'm doing and do it even better, then I'll be fine. When the guys when the Cullinans retired, that era, that old Hansi era of batters retired, they had AB, they had Jacques kind of coming in. And it's easy for you to then say, no, yeah, I can let it go. So too with a guy like a Sean Pollock, right? You've got this barrage of bowlers coming in who are now pushing you out. It's time. Mackay got pushed out a little, but there were people coming in to take that role. Even from the fast bowling perspective with Vern's one was interesting recently because there was nobody who could take over that specific role that he was doing with the ball. And everyone thought Clinton Steedman, it kind of hasn't been the same. But now we found somebody. So that's the thing. And so for me, guys, Dean bats if Dean wants to play until he's 40, I'm paying for his fitness guy. or CSA needs to pay for his fitness guy, keep him fit. Unless if these kids don't want to put, we're going to talk about those kids who put their hands up, and we'll see maybe if there's something coming up. But yeah, the other storyline about that game.
Yeah.
Tim, I just want to go to the final storyline in that game. The bowling of the Knights, that was horrible. And the problem is that Gerald Coetzee is going to Australia, and he's not even dominating his own people. I was really worried about that.
It's not so much of a concern for me. It really isn't. He's not picked on his stats alone. That's not why he's going to Australia. He's going to Australia as a backup. He's going there as a real backup. Okay, nothing for 147 at 6 and over is not good. I'm not in any way shape or form saying that is good. I'm not in any way shape or form saying that he had several job catches and he was unlucky. It was a bad day at the office. There is no getting around that in any way, shape or form.
This has been Gerald Coetzee since last season.
In the 4-day setup, look.
I'm really worried, right? That, and I know is not fit. That we might just be like, hey, if one of our quicks are not fit, we're going to overlook and maybe overlook Linton Steedman and throw this guy in because he's quick, and then you're going to get 0 for 146. And I think
we're going to go the other. I think we're going to go the other way. I think 2 bowlers are going to have to break down for Coetzee to actually play in the side. In my opinion, I think we will go with the Clinton Stearman who can hold up an end before they go to Gerald Coetzee. That's what I think they will do. So that's why I'm doubly not concerned. I have my concerns about Stearman in Australia and his effectiveness, I do, but I think it would have to take Rabada and Ngidi to be out injured for a test match for Coetzee to actually make the 11. I could be wrong, but that's why I'm not overly concerned at the moment. But it is a concern. I'm not really getting all anti about it. Let's just be calm, see where it goes.
Okay, we're going to be calm. I'm still like...
Look, 6 and over is rubbish.
My last point of this, Alan Donald was his coach last year.
I know.
Alan Donald was
I know.
I know. He averaged 35.
I know.
Okay. Next one.
Yeah, I know.
You were here. Let's go to the next game. You were here. You were in Cape Town. You watched this game. Western Province, 557. Yes, let's bat once. Big innings. I'm assuming a flat-ish Cape Town wicket, but it seemed pretty lively for your quicks. Cal Verreynne 201, Eddie Moore 71, batting a 3 though. George Linder scoring a 70. Dane Patterson coming through with 6 wickets in the match, 41 in the first innings for 20 in the second innings. There wasn't much on the other side, but Stiaan van Zyl, who's opening for the Rocks, note that's important. Sean van Bergen on that 47, and Hardus Viljoen 2 wickets. There's not much to write home about by the Rocks' performance. Stiaan van Zyl opening and scoring 62. His average is high-ish this season at that spot. But obviously, Cal Verreynne, second 100. Last week he scored 80. This week he scores a double. Shutting down the critics, man. This is essentially what everyone hopes Aiden Markham gets to do now again. Come back, bully those guys. I just hope this isn't the let's go to international cricket and he still has that gap between bat and pad. He's still very expansive. He's not compact. But I didn't watch him the whole way, so I'm going to rely on you. How was that 200? Is it a change, Carl? Is it the same, Carl?
The 200 was good. It was really, really good. He was more compact. Plus, Hardus Viljoen, 2 for 110, is not a fair reflection of how well he bowled. He bowled superbly in a Rock side that were really poor throughout that game.
They really don't have bowlers, that team. They don't have quicks.
The problem the problem with them is they were without Babanya Jeje, who even at his young age, he's actually a first 11 player. Right now, you actually pick you pick an 11, he makes it every single time. He is so good at the moment. His replacement, because he missed out, he was slight injury. He'll be fine for next week, so don't have to worry about that. Kumedi was really poor. Kumedi was really poor. Kumedi
He was at the Easterns last year.
Kumedi was.
He's a former Titans player, then went to Easterns last year when we did the whole split, and now he's in Mpho.
Yeah, look, he's the guy who's probably best suited at white ball. He couldn't get his lines and lengths right. He bought far too full. He was extremely ineffective. The other thing with Paul, though, the ball out though, is they were without Peter Milan. Peter Milan not in that side, and he isn't going to be available until February, is a massive blow for them. They're batting when it relies on the Milan brothers too much as it is. When they had half of the brotherhood in the 11, it was even more impressive, taking into effect that Milan Yanaman was out for single figures in both innings. Provid's bowling was exceptional. It was really good. That pace barrage, Patterson, Mureki and Hendricks was a sight to behold. It really was. Hendricks hit Ishmael, the other opener for Poland, on the hand, and that was Ishmael's game. He was out of the game because of hit on the hand, but they lost on the day one. They lost on day one where the ball was doing stuff for Poland, and they got their lines and links wrong. In that first hour, they said to Tony, where would Tony like some balls? Tony would like some balls on leg stump. Half volley on leg stump. And Tony said, thank you very much. That's exactly what I want. Got himself in. Because he has a tendency to be too loose outside the off stump, in my opinion, Tony. Particularly in the longer formats. They didn't test him outside that fourth stump channel at all. They went around the wicket, which negated the possibility of getting caught in slips in the gully. So they took that weakness of Tony's and said, we're not going to bowl it to you, don't worry about it. The tactics were wrong. The losses of Peter Milan and Jeje were huge. And once the day one was over, unless there was rain, which there wasn't going to be any, there was only one way. Carl's innings was good, very good. As I said, Hardest bowled superbly. I've seldom seen, I think maybe 2 years ago I saw Hardest bowl as well as that. Because the pitch did get flatter and flatter, and he toiled hard. He was really, really impressive. But everybody else struggled.
Tim, I need to apologize to Tony DeZorzi. As I was compiling this, it's my fault. I did not overlook you, my man. That 163 was great. Because as you're talking, I'm like, wait, no. Somebody scored runs. Somebody scored a century at the top. I was like, oh, yes, it's Tony DeZorzi. I do apologize. Tony DeZorzi scored 163 in that first innings, opening the batting as well. So maybe the whole Dean Elgar retirement thing could come, that Tim wants, could come to fruition. You know, you could open a DeZorzi. I don't know.
Tony's not the answer. Tony's not the answer.
If Tony scores 1,000 runs or 800 runs, because nobody can score 1,000, well, you can score 1,000 runs. If Tony scores 800 runs this season, wouldn't you say Sarl and Dean?
It depends what Sarl's. It depends. It depends what the other two are doing and where the other candidates are.
But remember, it's the whole timber argument. It's the whole timber argument, right? Everyone's knocking on the door, and you are having a bad time, right? It's easier for you to be dropped then because, But if he's having a bad time and nobody's knocking on the door, you're like, oh, well, I'm just going to persist with this guy. Whereas now, And that goes to also the Stian Fansel argument, opening the batting. If that's where I'd like Stian to bat where Stian wants to bat after what he's gone through in the Proteas.
Well,
If he wants to open the batting, then
he
I'm
opened
not
the
going to
batting.
stop him.
He opened the batting because Peter was out. That's what happened. Peter Milan didn't play. That's why he was opening. Peter Milan would be opening, and that's why that happened. He has the ability. His 62 was very impressive, I must say. He got out to a fantastic delivery. He can't. He did his best.
But that's the thing. I think for me, I look at this. First of all, Western Province winning helps them try get out of the bottom of that. Remember, they were at the bottom half of the standings. They are now effectively saying that the fight is between Northwest and what's that other team, the Knights, because the Knights just don't know how to do things or win cricket games. So that was the good thing for them. The Rocks, from a bowling perspective, like I said before, I don't see them. Sean von Berg's your game changer, but it just didn't work out at Newlands, and that was the surprising thing. The next game was the franchise derby between the Lions, the DP World Lions, and the Northwest Dragons. The Lions put up 362. Dom Hendricks opening, scoring 89. Vian Mulder scored 115. The Dragons responded with 169. Lesego Senokwane scored 56. He opened the batting in that game. And then in the next innings, the Lions scored 203. And Ryan Rickleson scored 100 in that one. And then Northwest, in reply, chasing about 300, and the Lions didn't win by 362. Sorry, they won by some other score, but it wasn't 362. Just checking it. This is all me. The Lions won by 123. Sorry, 123, 123. The target, I think, what they needed was around there. They needed probably 400 to win, 390 to win, and they could only get 273. They won this on, I think it was just after lunch, or close to tea on day 4. Massive win for the Lions. For me, another storyline, Proteas scoring runs. They're not going to Australia, but they've put their hands up. Vian Mulder, 115. Ryan Rickleton, 100. You also saw, obviously, Wesley Marshall and Delano Portito score half centuries in the second half of that, in the second innings for the Dragons. But you kind of felt like the Dragons weren't up to that. They needed to bowl the Lions out cheaply, Tim. But for me, I look at that Lions bowling attack of Siboto, Sisanda Magala, who's now fit enough to play 4-day cricket. And it's not on Sisanda. It's on the CSA rule that deemed him unfit. Duan Olafia, Luto Sepamla, Bjorn Fortain, that 5. And Vian Mulder also didn't get a chance to bowl, but essentially, really, for me, it was an impressive one by the Lions, trying to get their legs back. It was their first game of the season. And to get runs from Rickleton, who's diving around looking like that ankle's got no issues, and Vian Mulder. And to a certain extent, I'm expecting this week a media announcement from the selectors saying that they've added 2 names to the touring party to Australia, one of Vian Mulder and the other of Ryan Rickleton, and an apology to say that the Lions took the risk to play him on the ankle, and it paid off.
Interesting. Look, this for me, man. You know, our rivalry, people. So I'm a Province boy, Paul's a Lions boy. The Knights had 8 overs. They had 8 overs to survive.
Oh, the Dragons.
When that last wicket fell. 8 overs. Marshall played brilliantly for his 56, played well within himself. Portea's 81, no doubt. Also needs a special mention against that strong that strong bowling unit of the Lions, who are really good. I mean, they were really good. The pitch was flattening out, and you thought maybe the Northwest would get a draw. But their first innings, they messed up. And that's what happens. You mess up in their first innings in this format, it becomes very difficult to come back, particularly against those 4 bowlers of the Lions. I actually think 14 was the pick of the lot. I really do. There were moments when Magala bowled well. There were moments when Sporter had the upper hand. But overall, I thought 14, his accuracy was top draw. But obviously the headlines, as you said, headlines are not injured Rickleton making 100, and the guy who you told to go out and score runs has now scored runs in England
In South Africa.
and South Africa, and he's just signed just signed a 2-year contract with Leicestershire, 2-year extension as of about an hour ago.
If you look at that Lions 11, right? Isn't that the 11 you'd want for the Proteas?
Not Dom Hendricks.
Because if you think about it, no, not saying, just the balance. When we speak about balance about Australia, but you've got 4 bowlers, 4 quicks. You've got 1 spinner batting at 7, and he can score runs at 7 at domestic. You've also got Van Mulder batting at 6, scoring runs and giving you that extra bowling option. So the Lions have 6 bowling options in 4-day cricket. Yeah. It's too much, but it would cover. It's the dream for the Proteas, and I'm sitting there going, we have a problem at 6. The Proteas have a problem at 6, and he can actually bat at 7 because I've always said Vian needs to be able to score runs in the top 6 in order for him to take the number 7 spot. He has. I know the Marco Jansen brigade is going to come, but we need Marco to play, because if Marco doesn't play, we can't see who's better. Because right now, someone's excelling in international, the other's excelling in domestic. Even though one's the better bowler, the other one, I assume, is the better batter, but he hasn't proven it. Marco has. So for me, that's what I'm saying. I want a press release, because if I'm Mali, I'm thinking, hey, one deal has got something going on here with this balance thing. Let's see if we can't replicate it at the Proteas. And the only way you can is if you have someone like Van Mulder. And so I'm happy for him. Really am happy for him. And to a certain extent, for me, I'm sitting so that Tim, I'm racking my brain, because this Thursday, and I think I'm going to go to the stadium on Friday. The Lions play the Titans, but all the Proteas are available, and the Lions have named Kagiso Rabada and Themba Bavuma in that starting 11, in that squad. Who do you draw? Because you could get
I don't play Kagiso. I don't play Kagiso. I don't play him. I play Timber. I don't play Kagiso.
Tim, I want to see Kagiso do one. Someone of Luto and Sisanda.
Look, you could drop Spotter, but that would be incredibly harsh on the guy.
A captain.
That would be so harsh.
It is,
because you want Magala, because you want his fitness to maintain it, to maintain his fitness. So you don't want to drop Magala. So if you're looking at that way.
But Tim, we were here the same time last year when the Lions were blowing everyone away with that bowling attack. It's happening again, and now you can add Kagiso to the mix. Let me have a good time. Let me believe. But anyway, let's go to the last one. Let's go to the last fixture of the last result. Oh, this team is a 4th innings team or a 2nd innings team. The Warriors. 166 in the first innings, played 285 against the Dolphins. They then put down another 390. Like, they just know how to score 300 plus scores in the second innings. And then the Dolphins getting bowled out by a guy who was playing second division last year, Bear Swanepoel. He took 7 in the match, 4 for 28, 3 for 53. But big numbers. Jordan Harman, who is the guy we spoke about last week, he scored 51 in the first innings. But Diego Rosier, who you could say unfairly overlooked in this whole melee of looking for middle order batters for the Proteas, and Matthew Bretzka, not Andrew's the other one, Matthew Bretzka, who is also in like that ambit of young players who could play Proteas. Ziad Abrahams took 3 for 50 in that innings as well, in the first innings. But then on the other side for the Dolphins, Andile Petluguayo is in our little score sheet here, 68 runs there, he scored. But Ethan Bosch with bat and ball, 51, 3 for 36 with the ball. Jason Smith came through in the second innings with 37. Othniel Bartman took 3 for 21 in that first innings, and then Odirile Mudimukwane, who's the right arm spinner or left arm spinner for the Dolphins. He scored 4 for 106. Tim, disappointing from the Dolphins. Very disappointed by the Dolphins batting, but what a story this Warriors team is building out of Gqeberha. They are with the Titans at the top of the log, having won 2 in a row. But I wouldn't have expected it because both games they got themselves out of they snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. And in this one, coming in with a deficit of about 120, they managed to put up a score that gives them the win. And it's another 300 plus score, massive one. And this time it wasn't Jordan Hanman, it was Diego Rosier. This team has the characteristics of all Warriors teams before. Very, very skillful. They don't have superstars, but each one of them on their day can do it for you. And they have big match temperament. How was this game for you?
If I'm assessing this game as a Dolphins player, I'm going, how did we lose this? How did we lose this fixture? Honestly, we bowled about 566 in their first innings. We had them 281 for 7 in their second. 281 for 7. And we let them score another 110 in the last 3 wickets. That was the difference. That there was exactly the difference in the fixture. Losing by 69, you can make some numbers there. That was the killer. It was absolutely astonishing. You and I have said, I certainly said, Warriors will struggle in the 4-day series. They don't have the side. They don't have the experience.
Especially with John out.
The losses of Eddie Moore and John will be too much in a format where you need experience. You actually need guys who can who've been there and done it, who've battled long periods, been through tough periods. How wrong I've been. This side is such a good side. They play right to the end. They do not give up. I saw some heads being dropped in the ball-out game. I can understand why that happened, but this Warrior side, they refused to give up. The other important part was when they're chasing the Dolphins, they lost early wickets. They never really recovered, but they got themselves to 150 for 5. Jason Smith is in. He's got 37 not out. Pat LaCroix's in. He's got 20 odd. They're in. They've got themselves in. The new ball comes. They had a little partnership of about 40 or 50. The new ball changed. And the new ball came at that period because they allowed Lipper and Chippo Ndwana to just keep things tight. Between them, they bowled 68 overs at 2 runs and over. That's in the entire match. 68 overs in the match at 2 runs and over. So they were never threatened. They were never put under any sort of pressure. So by the time the new ball came, Dolphins still needed 70 runs to win. And Jason Smith got out to a magnificent ball, just leaving him out of the off stump. Jason Smith doesn't move his feet all that much. And that was curtains, really. So the inaction, particularly from the Dolphins in the second innings, not being progressive enough, not taking risks, which the Warriors did. At 281 for 7, they didn't go into their shell in their second innings. They said, you know what? We're going to get to 320, 330, 340. Let's see how many we can get. That's why they won. They won because they have the belief and they play this attacking, in-your-face attitude sort of cricket. If I look at their fixtures as well going forward, which we will get into, most of their fixtures now are at home. They have a real chance at a trophy. I think 4 of their remaining 5 games are at home. Just one against the Titans, which is at Pretoria.
And you can
Otherwise,
actually throw that one away, hoping that the Lions do a job against the Titans. And you
yeah,
make it like last year, some sort of a three-way situation going into the final week. Because you know the Dolphins are going to give the Titans a run for their money. The Lions definitely will. And obviously it's next year, so it'll be post SA20, and most likely the Proteas will be available if they're not, because I don't think we've got the West Indies, but we're not playing Test match cricket against them, and it's also not a Super League match. So, and we've got like Netherlands second half, but so it is very, very possible that this team can rely on help from each other, from the others, but they've done themselves to a massive service by actually beating like a title contender in the Dolphins, and in that kind of making the Dolphins feel like they need to start winning games. Well, they do.
yeah, yeah. Dude.
Yeah. So Tim, I think you've. Are there any notable performances? Yes, it's Division Two. Tim, let's go into Division Two results. I think it's slightly well. You things froze back. I can hear you in my ears. Um, Division Two fixtures or results for this weekend. There was only one draw. That was the Tuskers and Northern Cape Heat. That was in Pietermaritzburg. We've also got the Eastern Cape Lanyati seemingly coming through there and beating Easterns. And then also the Southwestern District Badgers, the 6-gun grill Badgers, Golden Garden Route Badgers. That's what they're called now, scoring a mammoth 611. Onke Nyaku scoring 201 in that innings, a double century for him. I'm really happy for him. He's also kind of an all-rounded type as well. You also had Blade Capel scoring runs. And there was another person who scored 150. His name escapes me. But then obviously Limpopo, we always said Impala and Mpumalanga were not going to be at the races, and so massive win for the Garden Route Badgers, who are looking to get themselves promoted, and that's them. Eastern Cape were really helped by the rain in thingy
Yeah, look,
in Pietermaritzburg.
yeah, the fixture for me was the Eastern Cape one. The Eastern Cape one against the Easterns. Easterns have got a long history of, guys that have gone on from the Easterns into the Division 1, what is now the Division 1, into the bigger franchises. So they've got a big history there. So for the Eastern Cape to get that win is a huge, huge thing. Just to touch on there just slightly, Thomas Caber, hugely, hugely impressive. He got 10 wickets in the match, his first 10-wicket haul in the match, and the last person to do that for Eastern Cape and Yati, which is effectively border, was none other than Otis Gibson in the 1994-1995. So,
10 for
and that's
156.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, there were other notable performances. I think we've covered a lot of performances in the Division 2. Kabelo Sikukune returning to Easterns, scoring 90. He was playing last year for the Warriors. He didn't get a lot of game time. We also spoke about Malika from what is it? The Linyati. He scored double half centuries in that game. And yeah, so those were the notable performances. Tim, any other performances that we didn't talk about that you were like, it's not like a half century or a fifer, but this is somebody we should be looking out for?
No, I think we have touched on everybody.
Cool.
I think I've touched on all the things that I wanted to mention.
Then we go into the fixtures for next week. This is my birthday week fixtures. This is my gift to all of you. My birthday's on Wednesday, so this is my gift to all of you. I'll be at the Wanderers on Friday. Hopefully, I think I will be watching the Mammoth one. But we'll start at the top. The Dolphins host the Rocks in Durban. I think this is a nice game. Both teams similar type of styles. One team's fast bowling is better than the other, but the other team's batting right now needs to find a rhythm. That's the Dolphins. You also got the Warriors and the Dragons, which should be an easy win for the Warriors here. And the Warriors are playing at home. So that's going to also be very nice because this Northwest Dragons team is 0-2. They're going to struggle in this tournament. Well, not 0-2 because the one match was drawn. Then the big match of the round, the Lions against the Titans. I don't know if Aiden Markham's going to be playing, but he's the only other addition to the side, and maybe Lungingiti. Those are the only other additions to this Titan side that come in. On the Lions side, Kagiso Rabada, Temba Bavuma potentially could come in. We're not even talking about Diego Brevis. We don't want to see Diego Brevis now. This is a clash of the heavyweights. This is it. Like this is it. This is Dean Alga versus Kagiso Rabada in a competitive match. KG against Tienes. It's KG against it. Even Duan Olivier. And so you gonna this is probably the best match. This is to me, whenever I look at the fixtures, I look at the way this match is because these two teams have managed to retain as much Protea talent as possible in order for us to give us quality domestic cricket. And finally, in Cape Town, the Six Gun Grill Western Province take on the iTech Knights. This also should be an easy one for you, Tim, for your team. If Calvarena comes to the party and Tony DeZorzi comes to the party, it seems like everyone else is also, pitching in here and there. The Knights, lots need to be happening, especially from a bowling perspective. They cannot keep themselves in the game with the ball, and they'll be hoping to turn that around. These are the matches for this week. Yeah.
Now, I was just gonna say, I think if Coetzee needs to do anything this week, it's to watch the Province bowlers. Look at how much bounce they got. Look how much bounce Patterson got. Patterson on that Newlands pitch. If he can get that bounce, then so should Coetzee. So there is a little glimmer of light for him. He should realize, you know what? This stuff I hear about Newlands being flat and stuff, it doesn't look flat there on that game. So maybe I can get something out of it.
Yeah. And before we go away, we're done with that. That's the end of our show. Before we go away, we just received news from SA20. They speak about the wildcard signings and give us the rules around the wildcard signings. First things is that the players are going to have a base price of 175,000 Rand in the inaugural season. It will come at that. And the franchises uses their discretion to select the caliber of players to bolster the squad, which will be playing personnel number 17 and number 18, because obviously we've got 16 players now. And the players who are not registered for the auction are now eligible for selection. That brings in the Pakistani players who were seemingly unavailable in that. So you could get a team going and get two Pakistani players as well, rather than a South African player that was overlooked or wherever it is. And yes, each team will have a maximum of 8 players, which means that they selected 6 overseas players. You can actually add 2 overseas wildcards at that price. The question obviously is the question I'd want to ask back to the commissioner at this point in time, because it's a press release, would be, are they still held in the bounds of the salary cap? Because there'll be some Pakistani players that want to go for 875,000 Rand rather than 175,000 Rand. So that's my thing. Like, for instance, Shaheen Shah Afridi, if you can get him to come to South Africa to play in this tournament, he's going to want a lot of money. And I'd give him a lot of money. And that team in Cape Town that supposedly didn't have a top order batter, and obviously Grant Wilson proved otherwise. If they're looking for a Mohammed Rizwan type of a player at the top of the order, you're going to have to pay. Did they have money at the end of the auction? We don't know. So those are the things that we need to clarify. And also the whole Temba Bavuma and Dile situation. Is there someone who's going to bite the bullet and be kind of forced to take them? I thought somebody was going to be forced to take them, but they didn't. So those are the things that will be permeating what we're talking about. But just to let you know, so you have it off the bat and everything else. Outside of that, Tim, thank you very much, my man. Yes, final words.
Final word is John O'Bird is fit for Western Province. He wasn't fit 100% for the last game. He is now fit. Not saying he's going to be picked. I'm just saying it's nice to have that addition to the province setup, because if there's one weakness there, it's they're a little bit light to the batting side.
Well, in that, and we'll be back next week again talking about this as well, and probably leading into, I don't know, we go into a hiatus. So we're going to be talking Australia, and we'll be talking about that, maybe some interviews, whatever it is, but we'll decide. Outside of that, have a great week, and goodbye, good night, and lesale. ka kagiso.